Wayne, I heard something about you the other day.
Sure,
I'm gonna tell you what it is. Your wife said she loved you.
It's great, man.
In all reality and seriousness, though, gossip. What a fun topic. You know, here we are coming down the close of this season, just about 6 episodes left, and it's time to talk about gossip. I would like to set it this way and then kind of toss it to you. I think when we look at this, we get gossip and slander as a synonymous term, and I don't think that that's the way that we're supposed to get it. So what would you do if someone asks, what is the difference between gossip and slander?
I would say in the background of the definitions, you're looking at what is the intent also when we start talking about gossip and slander. Gossip can, it could be something that's true or false, while slander is always false. Gossip is it's typically something that's not serious and is just spreading some information about someone. But slander is used when someone intentionally wants to ruin another person's reputation by some falsehood, some lie. Typically, is how slander is used. So when you start thinking about the two, just a couple of passages come to mind. Proverbs 11:13, a talebearer reveals secrets, but he who is a faithful spirit conceals a matter. So there's a time I don't have to divulge everything, put it all out there, everything I know. I don't have to tell everything I know. And there are times when it's better to actually conceal it.
Right.
But the talebearer wants to reveal it all just because they know something. And so that's the area obviously that we're delving into. Proverbs 20 verse 19, he who goes about as a talebearer reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with one who flatters with his lips. And so there's usually there's the intent of, hey, I know something, and that makes them feel special, and they want to tell it.
Yeah. I heard something. You're never going to believe it.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. I was just talking.
Sorry.
No, but I get irritated when people say gossip is the same as slander.
Right.
Because it is not.
Right.
A gossip, the definition I have, is a casual or unconstrained conversation or reports about other people, typically involving details that are not confirmed as being true. That does not mean that the details are not possibly true. It means they're not confirmed yet. So, for example, gossip would be a simple understanding of, hey, you might leave and start, doing stateside missionary work. Well, that's not been confirmed necessarily at the time I may say it.
Right.
That's gossip. Still not good. Still not something that we should be involved in doing. It can certainly get me into trouble and get you into trouble. And people telling all that they know or saying things, or as you put it, I've got something, you got to hear it. You're never going to believe what happened, is obviously still not a wise decision. But the intent behind it, I think, is what we need to talk about.
Sure.
Because if an elder comes home from a meeting and tells his wife, we might lose our preacher, he's been asked to go do another work, is that gossip? Because if it is, then how do we share anything with anyone? We have to be careful, right, that we don't sit there and say that all of that would fall under the category of gossip, because my wife and I are supposed to be able to have conversations privately, just the two of us, discuss things that no one else is going to know about, and that may include things of, hey, just something to kind of keep an eye out. We're not sure. Just something to keep an eye on, not sure. If I'm gossiping when I'm doing it, then I'm sinning. I'm committing a transgression against God when I do that. Gossip is the idea of liking to talk about other people's private lives. And there are times where when I'm doing that, if my intent is to talk about your private life, if my intent is to do whatever I do to try to make life difficult on you, then certainly I've got an issue.
Yeah.
But slander is different. Slander is defined as spreading rumors or lies about a person to cause damage purposely.
Yeah.
And I've heard of this happening before where someone may start a malicious rumor. You know, they slept together. Why? Is it even true? Well, I'm pretty sure it's true. But the damage that can do to somebody is irreversible at times, let alone if it's not true. And it's kind of funny how this happened. There was a man, I've heard this story before, and I might butcher it, but there was a man, preacher in town, and he was caught with another woman at a restaurant. And the local community was all up in arms about this. Here he was stepping out on his wife. And so it got to the point where the preacher had to call a meeting. And everybody came into the meeting, and he says, first of all, I was not in town on the night of question. Therefore, I was not in the restaurant on the night of question. Second of all, I'm not even married. You talk about such a terrible thing. Like, here they were saying, here he is stepping out on his wife. He wasn't even married.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will say things and do things that are just downright false just because they like to chatter. But slander is certainly an issue. And gossip has been condemned, multiple passages. You probably covered some of them as well, and we look at some of the things you talk about, and Proverbs says a lot about it. But Ezekiel 36:3, prophesy and say, therefore, because they made you desolate and swallowed up on every side, you became the possession of the rest of the nation. You were taken up by the lips of talkers and slandered by the people. Yeah. There's that word slander. Leviticus 19:16, don't go about as a talebearer among your people, nor take a stand against the life of your neighbor. I'm the Lord. Psalm 41:6, if he comes to see me, he speaks lies. His heart gathers iniquity to itself. When he goes out, he tells it.
Right.
When he goes out, he tells it. Can't help but tell it. And lies and rumors are what we need to be thinking about here. But gossip's also condemned in the New Testament. James 4:11, don't speak evil of each other, brethren. And, we cannot spend our time speaking on things that we don't understand and we don't have the full scope of knowledge on. 1 Peter 2:12, having your conduct honorable among the Gentiles, that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may by your good works which they observe glorify God in the day of visitation. One of the things that elders are required to have is a good report of them that are without. And part of that, I think, is so that the community can know this is an honorable man. Right. They're a good man. They're serving in the highest honor, the highest office of the land that we have in the church. And that's wonderful. But I also think the secondary reason that a good report of without is necessary is what happens if someone comes in saying something and they start doing things to promote lies and falsehoods. The good report of those in the community is also one that could say, that doesn't sound like the guy we know. Right. And I've heard the story of the preacher who, the woman came into the Sunday morning services, was paid by somebody local that didn't like the preacher, and she showed up, bypassed the preacher, walked straight into the pulpit and said, I'm having an affair with your preacher, and left, got in a car, and went on a paid vacation. All that for the turmoil that she caused and the destruction that she brought. Well, the good report of those that are without would hopefully be enough to say that can't be true. Right. Not possible. But our reputation certainly matters. And this is one of the things that I think, Wayne, we often talk about gossip with an understanding of, we say women do it the most, but that's not very fair. Yeah. It's not very accurate either. In 2018, a study was done that of the people polled, yes, the majority of those were women. About 67-ish% of women who were polled said, yeah, I've gossiped before. And when the men were polled, about 55% said, I've gossiped. That number's not that far off. Right. It's 12%. And certainly, as we talk about a lot on the network and on what would you do if and everything, statistics are something that are tricky and finicky, and you've got to make sure you get them right. But of the people polled, for 55% to say, yeah, I've done that, and 67 of women to say that, those numbers, and that's 2018. Mm-hmm. How close would it be if we could poll those same people today? Would that number have risen? Would it have grown, shrunk? This is a problem,
It is.
but I think that gossip needs to be put in its own category, which are things that cannot be confirmed as being true, but they might be. They seem more harmless in that way. Slander is the intent of hurting people,
Right.
the intent of trying to bring destruction. And most of the times that I have heard somebody saying things behind somebody's back with the intent to do something like that, I've never thought of it as gossip. It's slander.
Right. And I would say, like David in Psalm 109, he says, "Do not keep silent, O God of my praise, for the mouth of the wicked and the mouth of the deceitful have opened up against me. They have spoken against me with a lying tongue. They have surrounded me with words of hatred and fought against me without a cause." Well, how were they fighting? It wasn't a physical fight. He was talking about fighting of words. They were sitting there. They were telling stories about him. They were, trying to discredit him in some way, and so much that happens in the world today. There's numerous passages talking about slander in particular, but evil people are addicted to it. They love this. Psalm 50, verse 20, "You sit and speak against your brother. You slander your own mother's son." They'll talk about anybody in that way, and so and with the intent to just tear down, and typically with the intent of tearing down means that they're trying to raise themselves up, and that's how that typically works, and so there are everyone can succumb to it, because if somebody has an agenda against you, they can make up stuff. And so we try to live in such a way, like you mentioned a moment ago, to try to live above reproach, and so that even a good report without and within, people can stand up for you and say, no, that's not the character of that person. And you would hope that immediately, if I would hope somebody heard something about me that I've lived in such a way, and people know me well enough to go, oh wait, that can't be.
Right.
But with social media and other things, that stuff gets out there, and it's like a fire, and it is just burning down everything in its path in such a hurry, and so it's hard to even get ahead of those things, if you will. As soon as it's out there, I mean, it's out there, and then you spend the rest of your life trying to fight to get back your reputation that was destroyed by someone. So slander certainly has that kind of intent to bring someone low, to bring someone down, and whether something is true or not is just put out there. So,
well, and here's the thing: this with the second one, I'll set you up before we do this. The idea of what would you do? Someone asks, "I'm just trying to tell people what I heard that is troubling." Well, let me just point out some things here that I think fall under this category. There's the idea of rumors. You hear something, it's not good. It's also not true yet. You can't confirm it. But you tell anyone, basically, to hear about it, and you ask someone else to get more info. Let me throw in a asterisk on this part. It is my responsibility when I hear something that is troubling to ask for more info and to figure out who may know. And if it's a situation where I'm trying to do the best by my brother first, I may not ask him first. I may ask someone that knows him well, is there any merit to this, before I go after and try to discuss it with him. I still think I should discuss it with him too, but I think sometimes the wisest approach may be the one that says, hey, before I take a baseball bat to this person and basically ask them to tell me why they did what I don't even know that they did, this other person was saying that they were there too. Let me ask them and see if this is true. I don't think there's anything wrong with that approach. But the rumor mill, when it goes about this way, can turn, and the gossip, slander spreads. There's planting seeds. You reap what you sow. Well, with that in mind, this is in such a way to make the listener question or assume something about the character of a person. Isn't it weird how he keeps staring at your wife when you're not looking? Well, that's called planting seeds. Now, if it's true, then that's not slander or gossip. If it's true that someone keeps staring at my spouse when I'm not looking, I better know that. I want to know that, and they better look out.
Right.
And you'd want to know the same thing. But if it's not true, imagine this outside of the marital realm. Isn't it weird how he keeps looking at your girlfriend when you're not looking? It's kind of weird, right? Don't you think? I know you like that guy, but it's kind of suspect.
Yeah.
If it were me, I'd be upset. That's just me, though. I'm just saying. Then there's the got this all wrong gossip. You admit you probably got it wrong. I don't think I got this right, but I'm going to spread it anyway because it's touching on some points that could be true.
Yeah, I don't know all the details, but let me just throw it out there.
Or it would sound exciting if true. Now, I heard that this is going to happen. Either way, it usually starts out this. I probably got this all wrong, but apparently, let me tell you everything that happened. Now, sometimes there's the difference, and I want to make this caveat, then throw it to you. There is a difference between what you and I would maybe have to discuss in matters of business with What Would You Do If, or Scattered Abroad, or 416 Ministries, and your own work that you might discuss with Cindy. There's things that I may discuss with my dad or Brother Rutherford when I talk to them about certain things that go on with the work of the school, and those may be speculative conversations of, is it this way? Now, I'm not sure about this, but here's something you may want to hunt down the lead on. I heard this. You may want to hunt it down and figure it out. Don't quote me on it because this is just something I'd heard. I want to pass it along to you because I feel like you need to know. In admissions at the school and all that can be important. In working with 416, if somebody said, hey, I heard you're going to this congregation, you may need to know this about them. Well, I think you'd appreciate that, getting a heads up, as long as the heads up is not 25 years ago.
Personal vendetta.
They told me that I was not capable of preaching there. And ever since then, all their preachers have not been as good as I am. Well, that's different than saying, I heard some troubling things from some of the people that used to go there that they were looking into instrumental music. That's not gossip.
Right.
That's not slander.
Yeah.
That's concern and saying, hunt down the lead. Finding out the facts and the information and looking at those things is not wrong. But Wayne, what would you do if someone says, I'm just trying to tell you what I heard and it's troubling?
Well, if somebody starts down the road, I might ask, here's the first question, to hopefully put them on alert, and which hopefully helps in the next question that I think you're going to ask me. But why is that anyone's business? Why is that my business? Why is it that you think I need to know this? And so hopefully I have the time to shut it down, to stop it, before it goes into a realm that it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
And if it is, hey, this is detrimental. This is something you need to know. This is about your safety. This is about something like, please tell me, warn me. Maybe it's warning and it's not gossip. And so there may be a slight differentiation right there, like you were talking about, where there's something that you need to know and you need to find. You need to track this down and make sure this is actually the case. If it is not, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But this is something you should know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's different than, hey, you might want to check this out.
Right.
I heard this about this guy. Whatever. So wait. So why is that anyone's business? Why is it my business? Why is it that you think that I need to know that? So part of that, we need to sometimes. Okay, somebody can be accused of gossip. And, on the other side, but we sat there and listened to everything they said. Why do we do that?
Sounded juicy. I mean,
doesn't that make us partakers of their evil deeds?
Yeah.
I mean, if we're doing that, so we need to shut it down if we can.
Yeah.
If it is something that I've got to know, then we'll work through that. If I get to the end of it and go, maybe I didn't need to know that, then now I have a set of information that I either need to, as the wise man said, I need to conceal the matter, or I need to do whatever I got to do with it, chase down the lead, and help this, whatever this situation may be. What I don't need to do is turn around. Leviticus 19 gives a reminder there, or warning there. You should not go about as a talebearer among the people. Yeah. And so on the other end of that, gaining that information, whether it was given to me right or wrong, I don't necessarily need to turn around and expose that information just because I have the information.
Right.
Somewhere it needs to be stopped.
Right.
And
Well, go ahead.
So I need to use wisdom then. That's where wisdom, good judgment, wisdom comes in to discern good or evil. Do I need to talk about this?
And I think that's good. One of the congregations, that's a good point. One of the congregations I worked with, we got a letter once, and that letter was accusing another congregation of some pretty bad stuff. And it said, we have the documentation to prove that this happened. We've got all of the things that you need. And we read the letter, and I just kind of looked at it, and I thought, as I read it, I said, where are the documents that are proving that these things had happened? You know, you're saying that this happened. You're telling us that you have the proof. Why didn't you just go ahead and send a copy? And I waited because our elders were, considering the letter and looking at it with us. And I knew the congregation involved, and I knew the preacher involved well enough that we had communicated some too. And so I already was prepared to make a response if the elders said, this is troubling, we need to look into this and do this, and kind of say, well, I'll be happy to give you that guy's contact info, and you can talk to him. To this eldership's credit, immense credit, which is proving what you said is so necessary and so wise, one of them said, so where are the documents that they say would prove all this stuff? And I said, they did not include that, evidently. And the elder said, well, go shred that thing then. Because if they're not going to send us the documents, they're just trying to slander a congregation, basically. And we're not going to stand for that.
Yeah.
That is something that I think we need more of, is an understanding that people sometimes are just trying to get what's best for them.
Right.
And they'll do that no matter what they need to do and how they need to do it. And Wayne, this is the thing. Crossing the line into gossip. And we tease about this all the time. Anytime we see something on Facebook that we want to talk about, we'll go, ooh, is this gossip? Is it not? I'll start by saying this. It can't be gossip if it's public in that fashion. If it's a public thing that has happened. Gossip is going around talking about things you can't prove is true. Well, if you say, did you see what was posted on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or TikTok? That's not in any way, shape, or form privated anymore. And they put their life out there for everyone to see, and that opens it up for discussion. And that means that I can say, did you see what that person said? You didn't see it? You need to go look at it. And it's blew my mind when I read it. You need to see it. It's not gossip. It also has to be understood that when I'm discussing something that is genuinely for the sake of handling a matter in the spiritual and scriptural way of saying, this is happening, I don't really know why it's happening, it's troubling me, what are your thoughts on it? If I'm getting advice, well, that's not gossip. But how do I know, that it's not gossip when I'm talking just in general without those kind of caveats? You may throw in some others too, but what would you do if someone asked, how do I know I'm not crossing into gossip?
I think where you started with the idea of whether something's public or private to begin with helps us determine that. And the idea of, again, one's intent. What is it that I'm intending to do with the information given to me? And maybe even if it's something that is public, posted out there, does that mean that I need to place my thoughts on that public thing, on that public post, in that way? Do I need to respond publicly to that, to every post that's out there? And I would just say absolutely not. Do we have too much of that?
Good luck.
And maybe if we responded less to somebody thinking they need to put every thing that should be private in their life public out there, they would calm down with it. And so there's that side of things, okay? And so maybe if we backed off anyway, making comments or liking or whatever, they would just, okay, well, nobody really cares about what I post anyway. Well, now you get it.
Yeah.
We really don't.
That's right.
So I hate to say it, but but that is social. That's the life of social media, and so for all that it is, but again, it comes back to the intent. So if I see that information, if I hear information, somebody comes to me with information, and if I'm asked for advice, how do I deal with this particular situation? And so I'm brought into the conversation, so to speak. Just because I'm brought in as an advisor does not mean that I then need to go and handle a situation on behalf of this other person.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I'm made aware of something does not mean that I need to post it or put it out there or go to this person. Now, if it is detrimental, spiritually speaking, and it is out there, then privately I should go to this person. I think there's scripture for that. Hey, for whatever reason, I have heard this is the case, or that this may be the case. Can I help you? Can I help you see the scripture in this? Can I help you walk this line faithfully to make sure that you're not lost in this? Can I help you in that? You know, that kind of, and I would think that a person would appreciate that kind of response. Oh, you did hear about, well, I'm sorry that you heard about that. Yes, I'm actually going through the, you would hope for the right kind of response there. But that's not always the case. It's not always going to be the case. So again, this whole conversation comes back to intent. And I think that's what people need to consider as to whether or not I need to share anything.
Yeah.
Anything, absolutely. Then it comes back, okay, why would I do this? Why does it matter to me? Why does it matter to this person that I think that I'm telling?
And let's be careful with the Facebook and Instagram posts that say, asking for my prayer warriors, God knows. That's tough, with that. Maybe not give everything, but just say, our family would love it if we could have more prayer today. And that's it. Yeah. But the idea of asking for prayers, things are really bad right now, God knows, that's going to breed someone to say, what is it?
Yeah.
And then they're going to call their friends and they're going to call their buddies. And
hey, do you know what's going on?
Yeah, do you have any idea? I saw this troubling post. Yeah. Do you have any idea what it is? So we need to be careful that we're not accidentally breeding gossip or slander to happen, or someone sees it and says, I bet it's this. And it's bad, And also at the same time, we think about what James says about the tongue. James 3 all the way down to verse 12. It's so small, but it can control the entire body, verses 3 through 5. It gets started and becomes an incredible fire burning out of that control, verse 6. It can't be tamed.
Right.
No matter how much you try, verses 7 and 8. I've tried. Not possible. Yeah. Can't be tamed. And it brings forth blessings and cursings, James 3, 9 through 12. So how do we stop it? How do we not cross into the line? Do we admit that we have a problem? And sometimes it might seem like we can't stop, sure. But we need to ask ourselves if what we've heard is true and factual. I'll close with these two verses.
Let me give you 3 words.
Say it.
Shut your mouth.
Yeah, shut your mouth. But let me read these Bible verses and then I'll do it.
Go ahead.
Number 1, Deuteronomy 13:14. Then you shall inquire, search out, and ask diligently. Yeah. And if it is indeed true and certain that such an abomination was committed among you, not speculate that it's true. If it was indeed true, then you do this. It is told to you, chapter 17 and verse 4, you hear of it, inquire diligently. If it is indeed true and certain that such an abomination has been committed in Israel, only when it's true do we do anything with it. Yeah. Thank you, Wayne, for being with me today, and thank you to our watchers and listeners, our viewers, those of you that are a part of the Scattered Abroad Network. What Would You Do If podcast is a part of that. We're grateful for the opportunity to be a part of the Memphis School of Preaching. We're here at the MSOP studios. If you're looking for a good school to support, you're looking for a good school to send students, or you're thinking yourself, you know what, it's time that I study the Bible more, this is the place to be. Yeah. You can email us at san@msop.org. We would be happy to talk to you about what we have coming up in admissions and what we can do to help you learn more about the Word of God. Next week, we'll be back with another Bible answer for your everyday questions. Till then, take care and God bless.